Hey everyone, today we are going to understand how we can write a simple sequential program in Python. In order to do so, we need just three sections to understand. First one is the input section, then you have the calculation part, then you have the print command. In order to understand the first input section is that whenever you open up a calculator, in the top section you will see that there's a blank space, and underneath it you have a couple of boxes or buttons, you can say, which are numbered like 1 2 3 4, and you have different symbols or operators like plus, minus, and multiplication. So whenever you press any button, let's say here we have 2, and you press the 2 button, then you get 2 right over here. So what is happening in this top section, it is asking for an input, right? Similarly, in your daily life also, if you visit a shopkeeper, you will ask him to give you a packet of chips or maybe some apples. So, similarly, in Python or in computer programming, there is also a section in which you can ask for inputs. So, what kind of inputs we can get? We can get like text, which contains maybe the name, age, etc. Then you can have numbers. Numbers can be divided into two sections. One is whole numbers like 1 2 3 4, and you can have decimal numbers like 1.23 or 3.45, etc. Apart from that, there are various types of inputs you can get from or in Python from the user. So how to get these inputs is using the input function, which is mentioned over here. So how to write input function is, first you mention the keyword input. After that, you use the brackets. That is the curved bracket. Make sure it is the curved bracket, not the curly bracket or the square bracket. These brackets cannot be used. After writing the or after using the curved bracket, you put in two quotes. That is the double quotes. Inside the double quotes, you put in a request. Right. So what is the request? That's the same request we saw an example when we were asking the shopkeeper for a packet of chips or a couple of apples. So in computer programming, you can also put in a request. For example, if you are going to write a program which will add a and b, in that, what are the requests you need to make? You need to ask for the value of a and the value of b. So how you can ask for the values of a and b is like, you can put in a request like enter the value of a. It doesn't matter what you write, but it should make some sense. That's all. So after using after putting in the request inside the input function, then you have to specify the type of input you are going to get. So that is exactly what we discussed a couple of minutes ago. So these are the type of inputs. So if the program is like to add a and b, for that you have what kind of inputs? You have numbers, right? Let's say these numbers are whole numbers, and in that particular section we need to type another bracket over here, and we need to mention another keyword that is called int defines the type integer. Okay, as we all know from the mathematics what integers exactly are. Then using this particular command, you will get the input from the user. Okay, but the thing is, a computer needs to store that value. So in order to store that value, we need the equal to sign and a variable like a can be a variable. What is a variable? Variable is nothing but a place or a name defined to store a value. That's it. So how can I write the command is exactly the way we understood. So we will see an example later on. Let's move on to the second section, that is the calculation part. Calculation depends or varies from situation to situation. In this particular section, you need to create a formula. So for example, if you go to, let's take the example again, when you visit a shopkeeper and you ask for a packet of chips. So let's say you got one packet of chips. Okay, one pack of chips that cost you around 20 rupees. And you also got one, let's say, what you got, a chocolate. Okay, that cost you around rupees 50. So if you'll ask what is the total amount which you need to pay, so for that you need to add both of these. So let's say this is a and this is b. The variables, the concept of variables, I introduced to you a couple of seconds ago. So what will be the formula using a and b will be a plus b. So that will give you the sum of both the values and whatever amount you need to pay. So similarly, depending on situation to situation, you can create your own formula using two concepts, that is the concept of variables and the concept of operators. So variables, we already discussed, are storage areas. Variables are storage areas where you can store the data, and operators are which help you to operate on those variables. So there are four common operators used in maths, so that's what you are going to use for now. So you have addition, you have subtraction, you have multiplication, which is defined or symbolized by the asterisk sign. Then you have the division, that is shown by the slash, forward slash sign. So these are the things you need to understand related the calculation part. After we are done with the calculation part, the final thing for you to do is to print the output. So let's say you got the results after adding the two values, the amount you need to pay. So you have the calculation part done like this: a plus b. So let's say it gives you 50. Okay, it is the part which should be done in your mind. For now, let's just understand the formula is a and b and the total conclusion is 50, but the computer knows it's 50. You don't know it yet because you haven't shown the output to the consumer. So imagine it like doing the calculation in your brain but not saying it out loud. Okay, so in order to say it out loud in computer, you need to use the print command. Print command is used somewhat like this: you need to write first the keyword print, then in that you need, or you can do, you can implement the print command in two ways. First is by using a particular set of what you can say strings. Strings, you need not to worry about strings for now. You can just say a sentence or a phrase. Okay, so I can say the total amount is. Okay, so there is a sentence you need to add before you say it out loud, the total of your the budget. So after that you can put a comma separated by a comma, then you can show the variable in which the sum of both the values is stored. Let's say you use the formula and you created the formula like this. Not only just a and b, you used a and b and you stored the value. Again, I told you earlier also that you need to store the value inside a variable. So the sum of both the values will also be stored inside a variable. Let's say c. Okay, here you cannot use a or b because they are already in use, so it's a good habit not to duplicate the variables in a single program or a single problem. So let's say the value is stored inside c, so we will put in c here and we will close the brackets and we are done. So let's so let's look at a couple of examples which are related to these three sections. So the first part is, it is given to you that write a program to add two numbers. So how you can do that is, first you have to take the input from the user, and how many inputs you need is mentioned over here. You need two numbers, so I need to use the input command twice. So I'll take a variable first a, I'll put in the equal to sign, then I will mention int because these are two whole numbers for me right now. So then I will write input. In that input command, I'll insert a request. So there I need to add two numbers, so I can write enter number 1. Okay, and I'll close the bracket, and again done. Then you need to ask for another number, because it is mentioned that you need to have two numbers, right? So I'll take another variable, that is b, and I can duplicate the command. Again, I can write int input, and I can mention the request again, but I'll change it a little bit. I'll write enter the number 2. Okay, or enter the second number you can use. After taking the input, you need to do the calculation, right? So the calculation will be, you need to add. In the program, they are asking to add two numbers. So in order to add two numbers, you need to use the addition operator. So I can write a plus b. In order to store this value, you can use another variable, that can be c, d, e, f, whatever you want. After the calculation part is done, you need to print the value out, right? So in order to do that, you can use the print command. I can write print. Inside the bracket, I can mention a sentence like the sum is. You can also write the sum of both the values is, or whatever you want to write. After that, I'll put in comma, and I'll mention the variable which contains the sum of both the values, right? So I'll write c, and I'm done. So this is the whole program. In 4 lines we have compiled the whole program, and we are done with the first problem. Next, in the second part, you can see or the second program, they are asking to add three numbers. It is very similar to the first one, but in this case you need you need to ask the user for three numbers. So first we'll start writing to take the input from the user. So we'll write a equals to int. Again, I am taking integer as an input. Then I'll mention the keyword input. Then inside the double quotes, I'll mention a request. Let's say enter number 1, and I'll close the brackets. After that, I'll mention another statement to ask the user for the second number. So I'm not going to write the whole command again. I'll put in like a line like this, which is going to show that yeah, it is the same as we have done earlier in the top statement. So I'll change the request, because that's what we're going to change over here. I'll say enter the number 2, and I'll close the brackets. Again, as we know, we have to enter three numbers, so I'll take another variable, that is c. Again, I will repeat the command, and then I'll ask the user, I'll put in a request like enter number 3. It's done. So now we have taken three inputs from the user. The next part is we need to add all of these numbers. So the numbers are stored inside a, b, and c variables. So I'll write a plus b plus c. That will be the formula for the calculation. In order to store these values, I can use c. No, I can't do that because c is already in use. So instead of using c, this time I can use another variable, that can be d, right? So after I'm done with the calculation part, I need to print the output. In order to print the output, I can use the print command. Inside the print command, I'll use a statement. Again, the sum is, and I'll put in comma, and then I will mention the variable d. Why d? Because inside d we have stored the result, or the sum of all the values, and we are done with the program. So in 5 lines we are done with the second program. Now let's go on and look at the last program of this particular section. In this, they are asking to multiply three numbers, right? So again, we have three numbers, but this time the difference is we need to multiply all of them. In order to multiply, the the only thing which will change is the calculation part. Rest everything will remain same. So first, starting with taking input from the user, I'll mention a variable a, and then I'll mention int because again I'm going to take integer type of input. Then I'll mention input keyword. Inside input keyword, I'll mention a request that can be enter number 1. After that, I'll close the brackets. Then I'll mention another variable. I can repeat the command and I can change the request to enter number 2. Done. And then the third input, because we need to multiply three numbers, so I can mention or I can repeat the command again or the statement again, and I can change the request this time to enter number 3, and I'll close the brackets. So using this, we are done with taking three inputs from the user. Then we will move on to the calculation part. In common mathematics, we do the multiplication of three numbers like this: a into b into c. But in programming, we can't do it like this. The symbol is different, the multiplication sign is different. So you need to use the asterisk sign. You can use it like this: a into b into c. And in order to store the result of multiplication, you can use another variable that can be d. After you're done with the calculation part, you can use the print command to write or to show the output of the calculation. Here I will mention uh, again a sentence like the result is, and after using the comma sign, I can mention the variable which contains the result of multiplication, and I can close the bracket, and we are done with the program. So that's all related to the basics of Python programming. We can create a simple sequential program in Python. Thank you.